Back when magicians ruled the world, there was a special group among them known as necromancers who had a rather creepy talent. They could create their own puppets by stitching together parts from both human and monster corpses, mixing and matching them any way they liked. Some would make puppets that looked like human knights, while others built wild creatures with hundreds of hands and poisonous tongues, or giant frogs, massive walls, tall lookout towers, and even bizarre things like cockroaches and cats. This led to the birth of the wildest and most popular sport ever. Because of it, necromancers from all over the world would gather every year in one place to show off their skills, battling each other until only one champion was left standing. Just like most people back then, there was a young boy who became obsessed with this sport. He spent nearly 17 years trying to make his own puppet, but no matter how hard he worked, he kept failing. Still, he was the stubborn type who wouldn't give up easily, so he always started over from scratch. The trouble was, to get the kind of corpses he needed money. And to make money, he had to take on a lot of dirty jobs no one else wanted, while the rich kids got to learn proper necromancy in fancy classrooms. If that wasn't bad enough, he was always picked on by bullies for no real reason, except being weak and growing up in a garbage dump and surviving by eating whatever rotten leftovers he could find. But he dreamed of becoming the strongest necromancer, so nothing about his tough life ever stopped him. One day, while visiting a necromancer's shop looking for something cheap for his latest project, a human woman's corpse caught his eye. He got curious and asked the shop owner about her, only to hear that nobody had managed to make this body move. He didn't want to waste his hard-earned money on something useless, but in the end, he made up his mind and bought her after the shop owner mentioned that she'd once been one of the greatest fighters of her time, and now just thrown out like trash. He brought the corpse home and quickly attached a cheap hand and leg to replace the missing parts. More determined than ever, he whispered the words to bring her back to life. Suddenly, with a flash of lightning, the girl's body actually started moving. The boy was frozen in shock. He couldn't believe he'd finally done it. The revived girl looked just as surprised, and they just stared at each other until, out of nowhere, she spoke. That freaked the boy out so much that he started screaming and wondering how could a corpse talk. In a panic, he grabbed a meat cleaver and pointed it at her. That was all it took for the girl to see him as a threat. In a sudden move, she gathered her strength and threw a punch so powerful that it blasted a hole in the wall. The next thing the boy knew, he woke up tied to a chair, with the girl sitting in front of him. She told him he had only survived because she had missed, and the reason for that was his new foot, which she couldn't control. Later, as the first corpse with her own mind and memories that didn't so easily obey the boy as her master, she agreed to work with him, but only if he promised to give her 95% of any prize money they won at the necromancy tournaments. The boy agreed, but even that unfair deal didn't stop him from falling for her. Days later, when they won their first battle and collected their prize, he bought her a maid outfit and asked her out on a date in a love hotel.